Dear students, very good morning to all of you. This is Durgesh Kumar Pandey, your history teacher. Students, I hope so that you all will well at your home during this pandemic. Students, in my last class, I had discussed about the crisis during the 3rd century in Roman Empire. Now, student, today I am going to discuss with you all about the development of social, cultural and economic status in Roman Empire. The topic is development of social, cultural and economic status and economic status. Students, what was social, cultural and economic status of Roman Empire? Students, now we will study today about it. So first in this we will discuss about the gender, literacy and culture. Gender, literacy and culture. Students, in this first we will discuss about the gender and structure of family. What was the structure of family in Roman Empire? They preferred the nuclear family. First, structure of family. First point in this, they prefer nuclear family. Students, as you know, there are two types of family. First, joint family and second is nuclear family. In joint family, the boy live with their parents, grandparents, uncle, aunt and their families. But in nuclear family, they live only that husband, wife and their children. So in Roman Empire, they always prefer the nuclear family. Adult son did not live with their parents. Adult son did not live with their parents. Students. Adult son did not live with their parents. And after that, it was exceptional for adult brothers to share a common household. It was exceptional in Roman Empire that an adult brother can share a common household. It was exception in Roman Empire that an adult son or brother share common household. Students, common household. It was exception that in a family, if a brother or a son can share a common household. After 18 years, they moved to live separately with their parents, separately from their parents and their brothers, their cousins, etc. They live separately after 18 years when they became adult. Students, slaves were included in the family. In the family, the slaves were very important. Slaves count as the members of the family. Slaves count as the members of the family. You can see now, recently you had seen a movie, that name of that movie was Bahubali. You had seen there the Katappa who was the slave. Whatever the ordered by the kings, he followed regularly. He was also counted as the members of their family. So students, we had easily seen in the Roman Empire, the slaves were important members of a family. Now students, we will discuss the status of women. Status of women. What was the status of women in Roman Empire? The women enjoyed considerable legal rights in the property of their father. The women enjoyed considerable legal rights in the property of their parents. Students, second one, arranged marriage was the general norms. Arranged marriage in general norms. अगर देखा जाए तो जो जनरल नॉर्म्स था मैरिज के लिए वो क्या था? अरेंज मैरिज होना चाहिए. देयर इज नॉट एनी काइंड्स ऑफ other types of marriages were allowed in Roman Empire. In Roman Empire, students, divorce was easy for both men as well as for women. Divorce was easy for both men as well as for women. They live with their life happily. If there is any confusion in his or her life, they can be separated. They divorced each other. And women remained a primary heirs of their father's property. Women were the primary heirs in their father's property. Students, women were the primary heirs in their father's property. Women were often subjected to dominated by their husbands. If we classified all those things again, then we can see that, students, next point was, fifth point, women were often subjected to dominated by their husbands. Women often subjected to dominated by their husband, Students, and one main thing saw that wives were even beaten up by their husband. Wives were even beaten by their husband. Students. And women could become independent property owners after their father's death. And women could be the owners of after the death of his father. Students, these were some rights, some special conditions of women during the Roman Empire. Now, students, there is an examples also that we have during the 396 AD. Saint Augustine, he was the bishop of the North African city of Hippo from 396, and he was at highest post in the intellectual history of the church. Students. We have an example that during the 396 AD, Saint Augustine, who was at great post of church, he said that the condition of women, not good. They often ill-treated by their husbands. Students, इन्होंने ये बताया कि उनकी माता को उनके पिता, इन्होंने अपनी फैमिली के बारे में खुद बताया। इनके जो पिताजी थे वो अक्सर इनकी माता जी को पीटा करते थे। किसने बताया? सेंट ऑगस्टाइन ने। सेंट ऑगस्टाइन said about the society, he neither than others take an examples. He give the examples from his own family, about his own mother. He said that his father used to beat regularly to his mother. Used to beat regularly to his mother. He said the conditions of women's not good in Roman Empire, in Roman society. They were always ill-treated by their husbands or by their male partners. Now students, we will discuss about the literacy. About the literacy. The rate of literacy generally varied greatly between the different parts of empire. The rate of literacy generally varied from different parts of empire. Different parts of empire. Of empire students. Only literacy was widespread in army officers, state managers and soldiers. Literacy is widespread. In state manager, army officers and soldiers. Why did this happen? Because they kept the record of their things. Because they kept records about many things. So they used to keep the records and they used to read and write. Students, now we will discuss about the evidences, what kinds of evidences we found during the Roman Empire, through which we can easily say that in Roman Empire literacy was conducted. So students, we will go through evidences we find in Italy. The city was Pompeii. In Pompeii, at wall, some things were written over there. So that we can easily assume that the peoples of that era knows read and write. Students, evidences in Italy. In Italy, there is a place Pompeii. In evidences, if we will talk about the evidences in Italy, in the Pompeii city, in the Pompeii city, in 79 AD, we get some documents that some things written over the wall. In 79 AD, we find or we get some documents, or something written over the wall. Students, from the Pompeii we get information. If we will discuss about the cultural diversity in Roman Empire, what was the cultural diversity, students? Cultural diversity. Cultural diversity. In the Roman Empire, the cultural diversity was reflected in many ways at many levels. In Roman Empire, cultural diversity cultural diversity was reflected in many places in many ways. On the basis of food, dress, settlement, etc. We can see each and everywhere on the basis of cultural diversity. They have many deities. They worship in different way. Different way, students. They worship in different way. Now, students, some things that were more important, in many places we had seen most of the linguistic cultures were purely oral. Students, most of the linguistic culture were purely oral. Were purely oral, students. Like the name of months, like January is a stand for hornwort. February stands for Pederwort. March stands for Mard. April stand for Abril. These were many evidences about the written and linguistic languages which were orally used. That was something. If we will talk, students, about the late 5th century, when the Armenian began to be used as written form of language. In the late 5th century, Armenian language began to be used as written form of language. Armenian language began to be used as written form of language. Began to be used as written form of language. Students, language. So students, here we had studied about the development of social, cultural and economic status in Roman Empire. Students, I hope so that this period was beneficial for you all. By this statement, students, I am going to end my session here. We will meet in next video in next day. Thank you, students.